The views or opinions expressed in the following broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of staff or management of DSE-TV. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, you see this theme of being in charge, that we need to be in control with not only the abortion issue, but certainly we saw it with the whole area of embryonic stem cell research. We see it with the whole attempts of scientists to clone human beings, wanting to be in charge, taking the place of God. Well, what can we do here? What do we do in Michigan? What do we do in Muskegon in order to stop this trend in our society, this attack on the sanctity of human life? Well, how many of you have heard about the rhino principle? The rhino principle. And there's one, the cameraman. But I do want to assure the legislators in the back of the room that I'm not talking about the rhinos that some people say they're Republican in name only. That is not the rhino principle. Instead, the rhino that I'm talking about is that huge, rather ugly gray animal with a thick skin. Well, the rhino principle says this: the rhino's been called single-minded because when faced with an obstacle, something in his path, he just charges ahead. So it's very simple. We as pro-lifers need to charge ahead. We shouldn't worry about anything. Instead, we shouldn't fuss. We shouldn't complain. We shouldn't have excuses for inaction. We just charge ahead, and we charge and charge until we succeed. And the best example is what Pat mentioned. It took us 15 years to pass the state partial birth ban. We just charged and charged and made sure that we succeeded. Before that, it took us 10 years to stop the use of our state tax dollars for Medicaid abortions. We had one veto and one veto and one veto, and we just charged ahead and finally were successful. Well, for some of you, you may feel a little squeamish about charging ahead and bowling people over. So I do have some simpler things, ways that we really can make a difference, whether it's here in Muskegon County or statewide or throughout the United States. And as a former teacher, I said 5 at the end of my speech. There'll be a little quiz, right, Pat? And you're going to have a prize for someone who remembers. Okay. Well, number 1 is prayer. And that may sound awfully simplistic, but that advice comes from Mother Teresa. When she was asked, how do you do it in the slums of Calcutta? She said, my secret is simple. I pray. And I think that is so true. We pray, but what I ask you to do when you pray to God to ask you what you can do in the pro-life movement. The other key is that you're quiet and you listen to Him, and then you follow through on what He is calling you to do. And I can tell you by experience, say yes the first time. Because if you don't, if you say no, He will keep nagging you. He will nag you over and over again. And He will give you harder things to do than the first time. And someday I'll tell you a little bit more about me and why, where I am, because I said no the first few times. Oh, so if you want to be the president of Right to Life of Michigan for 30 years, then be sure you don't say no. Okay, second, be informed. After you really have found out where you need to be, then you really need to be informed. Find out about the pro-life movement, being able to really argue your case, being able to answer those questions. And I think a really good place to start is with legislation. Really know what the law is and know what pro-life laws are, know what the pro-abortion people are trying to do. And why is that so important? I think because the law is a great teacher. When things are legal, then people say yes, they're moral. We had a speaker at our state conference about a month ago or so, and he said he spends a lot of time talking with the youth. And he asks them a number of questions, but he talks to them a lot about moral decision making. And he'll say things like, who decides for you what is right and wrong? And so he'll ask them that question, and a few of them might say, well, my parents. A few of them might say, well, I decide for myself what's right or wrong. But he said the majority of young people say, the government. The government decides for them what is right and what's wrong. So it's important that you've done exactly what you've done here in Muskegon County. You have elected good pro-life legislators, good men and women who will stand up for life. And that is why I encourage you always to take a look at the legislative, take a look at the law, and certainly when it comes to election times, take a look at who the pro-life candidates are. Number 3. Well, you've prayed and you've become informed, and so now you have to act. You have to move ahead. You have to wisely charge ahead. And I ask you to be proud of being pro-life. Because you know the people who support abortion, who support and promote legal abortion, they're proud of being pro-abortion. They may call themselves pro-choice, but they're proud of what they stand for. You know, Planned Parenthood, who is the largest provider of abortions, they have sold t-shirts that say, I had an abortion. Also, Planned Parenthood, usually at almost always around Christmas time, sometimes around Mother's Day, they have a promotion. And one Planned Parenthood affiliate at Christmas time sold gift certificates for their services, which included abortion. Now, can you imagine buying and giving somebody a gift certificate at Christmas of all times for abortion services? And so it's important that the unborn and their mothers, that they have champions in their corners that are as influential, as forceful as the proponents of abortion. And I've heard some people say, pro-lifers, oh, I just don't feel comfortable speaking out on the issue. I am just too shy. Well, I once read that even the shyest person affects and influences 10,000 other people in their lifetime. And you can influence people in small ways. You can wear the little feet pin that I have on. It's a great conversation opener. Another example is, I got a call this one day a few years ago from this woman I live in Shepherd, this woman in Shepherd, her name was Carrie, and Carrie called me and she said, Barb, have you ever seen these little these checks that are pro-life checks? They have little sayings on them. And I thought Carrie wanted to buy some, and I was about to say to her, well, yes, I have, but I don't know where you can get them. And Carrie said, well, let me tell you a story. Carrie had the little checks with a little cartoon on it. There's a man that is pleading to God, asking God, please send us somebody that will cure cancer, that will have world peace and will stop abortion and so on. And of course, the cartoon has God answering back, I have sent you those men and women that will do that, but you have aborted them. Well, Carrie said that she used checks like that. and that she used them at a little gas station, and that she paid for her gas with the check. And then she said a week later she went back to the same gas station, and again she was going to pay for her gas with her check, and she walked into the gas station, and the young woman there said, "I am so happy that you came back." And Carrie's wondering, oh, did my check bounce? But she knew no, that wouldn't happen. And the young woman said, I am pregnant, and when you came in, my family, including my boyfriend, was talking me into an abortion. I read the check, and I said to my boyfriend, no way. We are going to have this baby. So something as simple as a check can save a life.